taking a bite every minute or two, and then they're gone. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I have a full tray. Then I sip on myself. Or I sip on the 8th graders one time.
Matt, you kind of make me worry.
Why did you sip at 8th graders?
8th graders when
Because everyone else was gone. It was
Okay.
Friday.
So we are going to start Chapter 3 and see how far we get before the announcements kick on. So Chapter 3 is about the chemical building blocks of life. We're basically going to break down Chapter 3 into 4 parts, the 4 large macromolecules of life. So carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. So that should be, some bells should be ringing with those 4 terms. So we'll talk about the monomers and the polymers and how they contribute to life. So the learning objectives: identify the 4 macromolecules, know their chemical compositions, talk about how they form bonds, polymerize. Understand the consequences of hydration and hydrolysis reactions, and then we'll start with monosaccharides to disaccharides, cellulose, and chitin. So carbs will be up first if we get that far. But a little kind of a fun fact here with molecules. A cup of water contains more molecules than there are stars in the sky. Many molecules are larger than water and can form enormous assemblies, so we call them macromolecules. Macromolecules, macro, big, large. Okay. 4 biological macromolecules are divided in, so there's 4 of them. Got your carbs, nucleic acids, proteins, and lipids. And so we're going to talk a lot about how sugars, which are carbs, can form even larger complexes with the polysaccharides. Fatty acids form fats, lipids, cell membranes. Amino acids will form your proteins, and then nucleotides like A, C, T, and G. Or if you're talking about RNA, it would be A, G, C, and U. But they're all made up of subunits. These are the simple building blocks. When you get a bunch of them together, you form that big macromolecule. So starting with carbon, the framework of biological molecules. Chapter 2, we talked about the chemistry of carbon and how it has how many valence electrons?
8. Oh, wait.
Carbon would have
2.
It has 4. So that means it needs to form 4 more bonds or get 4 more valence electrons to get that full outer energy shell. So because it can form at most 4 bonds, you can get some very complex shapes. Straight chains, branches, rings, balls and coils. So different wide variety of shapes. Molecules with only C and H are called hydrocarbons, and the bonds involved there are covalent bonds. There's no limit to the length of chain of carbon atoms. On your exam, you'll be given a bunch of different compounds and molecules, and you have to identify which ones are organic. And so we'll talk about what it means to be organic. So you'll have to circle which ones are organic.
I feel like we learned this last time.
But if you see something like this, that's carbon. Okay? So each one of these intersections or points is a carbon atom. And when you see lines just like this, it's carbon and hydrogen. So if I wanted to kind of break down this molecule here, how many hydrogens are attached to the end carbon?
1.
No, because we formed 1 bond, so how many more bonds can it make?
Oh, 3 more.
3. So really, there are 3 hydrogens.
Oh,
How many bonds or how many hydrogens are attached to this carbon?
2.
2. And so it's 2 all the way down until you get to the end. And it's 3 at the end. So you can see there are a lot of covalent bonds here. And when you break and form bonds, you're either absorbing or releasing energy. So that's why carbs are a great source of energy. Okay, because of all these hydrocarbon bonds in the molecule.
Give or take, how many questions are going to be on this exam?
Oh,
Hundreds?
No.
Hundreds.
Nope. I think, okay, because I have to go through the questions again, but I'm shooting for at least 40 to 45 multiple choice. There's probably 5 short answers.
That's not too bad.
And then the last page is literally pictures of molecules, and you just need to know, you need to be able to identify carbon. So then you just circle the ones that have carbon in them. So sometimes, I'm pretty sure there's a picture that's like this. there's a C and then like an O. I don't know. I think it's like this. So it's carbon dioxide. And so you'd be like, oh, it's got carbon, circle it. Or I forget if it's carbon or organic, but.
So you're telling me that the other class got like 25% on multiple choice? You could just guess A every time and get about a 25%.
No, it's 20%. You get 5 options.
Oh no.
Because
Is
you
it
eat
one that says
all-
like none of the above?
Oh
Oh,
god.
that's terrible.
It's either, because like,
7%.
so when I make it, I go all of the above or none of the above.
Oh my.
So-
Oh, whenever there's an all the above, it's
But
always
it's,
right.
if it's on every question,
Automatic.
I know.
Nope.
Alright.
Not in this class. Just throw that
It
rule
used
out.
to be on tests where it's like you see it all the above, you just not.
Not in this. No.
I can maybe scrape by with a 25.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna get a 7% probably. That's what I'm shooting.
Okay. Now, besides carbon and the hydrocarbons, there are things called functional groups, and these groups have properties or characteristics that carry with them. And there's several functional groups. And so on the next slide, I'm going to show you some of the functional groups. But what happens is that sometimes carbon and hydrogen can have similar electronegativities, meaning that they're going to share their electrons equally. And if you share your electrons equally, you will be nonpolar. So hydrocarbons are usually nonpolar, and they're considered the core of a molecule. But you can have these other atoms with different electronegativities attached to one end of the hydrocarbon, and we call them functional groups. A definite chemical property they retain no matter where they occur, and it's usually because they have different electronegativities, or because of that, either a slight positive charge or a slight negative charge.
So how do they remain together no matter what if they have different electronegativity?
Let me show you. I actually have examples here. So these are the functional groups. Hydroxyl is OH. Okay, anytime you see a OH on the end of a molecule or on the side, you can say, okay, that's usually associated with alcohol. OH.
My
Okay.
favorite.
So ethanol. Notice I have my hydrocarbon, 2 carbons filled with hydrogens, but then 1 carbon has a hydroxyl group, so it's an alcohol. And so because of this, it's going to behave a little bit differently. It's flammable, where if it was just by itself, not as flammable. Okay. Carbonyl, carbon, double bonded to an oxygen. Okay. So in this case, preservative, acetaldehyde.
Why is there an extra line on the right of that one? Shouldn't it just be the dash and then the C and then the double bond and then the O?
Why does it have a
To
double
left.
bond?
This.
Why is that?
Oh, because I just took it from the example.
Oh.
Well, and plus
Like
this
isn't that showing
carbon.
that there's 3 carbons? Because there's a line and then a C and then a line.
Yeah, but this is just showing that this carbon is completely filled, so they just put the dashes. It's kind of like
Oh.
a piece, like a Lego piece.
Wait, why does it have a double bond to the oxygen?
Do you want me to draw that out?
Yeah.
So I'm going to draw the Lewis dot structure. So these are my 4 valence electrons. Okay. And here's oxygen. If I look at oxygen, oxygen has 6 dots on the outside, so it needs 2 more.
Oh, so
So it's a double bond.
So there's an open slot here, so I can move this over and form 1 double bond here, but there's still 2 open slots. So then, oh, okay, so we can do that. And maybe I make these X's to show that, but yeah, so it's a double bond.
oh, because it shares the electron.
2 pairs of electrons.
Is carbon and oxygen always a double bond?
No, it can be single bond, as long as they have full outer energy shells. So. Okay, carboxyl, carbon double bond with that alcohol there. So a lot of times you see it with proteins and lipids. An amino group, which is nitrogen and then 2 hydrogens to it. So there's your amino group, sulfhydryl. Found in proteins because sulfur is usually just found in the protein macromolecule. We have the phosphate group, which you should be familiar with ATP. So with ATP, there's 3 phosphates bonded close together to each other, and you cleave one off, release an energy. So this phosphate group, and then methyl.
My favorite. So so if you see the suffix oxyl, does that mean it's alcohol?
Well, if you look at ethanol, you don't see oxyl, but usually yes. If you see,
I meant like the actual pairing, the functional group, because it has
Oh, yeah.
oxyl in the end and then carboxyl.
So that's
well, that's a little bit different because sulfur. It's not the sulfur one.
Wait, so does that have alcohol in it?
Nope, there's no. Well, yes, this one does, but it's a different. It's a chemical. It's actually a nucleic. No, it's an amino acid. Sorry. Yeah. So if I were you, I would know this slide because also on the test, you will need to identify some functional groups. So like you'll see a picture of like literally like this or like this. And
You just have to say what the functional group is on the side.
to be there.
yep, the name of it. The name of it.
Hydrox.
I'm not gonna say is this a protein lipid. That would be mean. That would be really cool.
I'll see the big long one. I'm gonna be like, it's the one with the really long messed up name. Sulfhydryl.
Okay.
The really long one is called amino.
So I think I'm just gonna stop it right here, just because this is the cool part where we talk about left-handed and right-handed molecules and their different properties. So I'll stop it right here, and we'll pick up with isomers tomorrow.
Jade, what did you actually like?